Hi, Lauren.
Hello, how are you doing today?
Good, thanks. Thank you for joining us. We'll get started it's 10:30. We'll give everyone maybe like 1 or 2 more minutes. And Lauren, did you want me to bring up the PowerPoint or does it look like you have controls on your end?
I can share. It doesn't look like that I can share. So it says only meeting organizers and presenters can share.
Okay,
So
let me see if I can change that for you. How about now? You're muted.
oh, pardon. Yes, it looks like I can. I
Okay.
will.
And
Yeah, but I all the indicators that I can are there, so shouldn't be a problem.
okay, wonderful. And I do have the PowerPoint just in case.
Great. Yeah, I sent those also, um, along with a link to the preview that I'll share as well.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Any questions that we should address before we kickstart this training from anyone? Want to make sure I'm we're not going into it without having some of your pressing questions answered. No? Okay, wonderful. All right, let me bring up my PowerPoint. And I should say, I should share. My name is Rosy Rojo. I'm the Community Programs Manager. Joining us today is Adriana Delgado, and she's our Housing Community Services Technician, and also Lauren Silver from Zoom Grants. Alicia Vela, our grant specialist, is not here today. She is still with us. I don't want anybody to freak out. She is actually taking part in this amazing leadership program that the city has offered a handful of employees. And she's been doing that every once a week for the last, I think, 2 months. And it'll be really cool. They're working on a presentation they'll be giving to council, I believe, in August. So um, more to come on that, and you'll see Alicia as part of that first cohort that our city is really proud of. So she's doing good things. So we are here today, and let me share my PowerPoint. There we go. It's looking a little small there. My apologies. Is it difficult for everyone to see? It's good? Good on everybody? Okay. Let me know. Oh, I see a question that popped up or a hand up.
Sorry, I was trying to give you a thumbs up, Rosie.
Oh, thank you. All right, great. All right. If anything changes, let me know. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us. I at the maybe a few minutes ago, I did share that if you haven't done so already, please enter your name and your agency in the chat box so we can confirm your attendance. We'd greatly appreciate that. So today we will be going over your reporting, and that includes your Exhibit A, B, C, your request for payments, and anything else that is related to the contract agreement. And a lot of you, most of you have submitted your Exhibit A, your statement of work. Thank you for that. We appreciate that as well as insurance information. And that will also be all part of your contract, which you will be seeing soon in your inbox because we are actually, it's 2023, we're doing things electronically. Yay! So we are going to be sending you the contracts electronically. We will be accepting electronic signatures, and that includes electronic signatures for your request for payments. So you no longer have to submit a copy of the wet signature by snail mail or to drop it off. We will accept electronic signatures. So we will go over all of that. But first and foremost, we would like to bring in Lauren Silver from Zoom Grants, and she will be sharing with you the ins and outs of how to navigate Zoom Grants, which I think most of you are familiar with and most of you really enjoy working with. But just in case, it's always great to have a refresher, and especially having Lauren here with us, who is wonderful at explaining everything. So Lauren, I will pass it on to you.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm Lauren Silver, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and hopefully everyone can see at the beginning of this PowerPoint that I have that's for applicants, subrecipients, on how to submit invoices and reports, as we call them within Zoom Grants. So as Rosie has referred to them, you may refer to them as something different, such as Exhibit B within your reporting feature. So just be mindful of that when you are looking and seeing any articles within Zoom Grants University that they may have been renamed for those purposes by the administrator. So the first thing that you'll need to do, of course, is access your Zoom Grants account. If you haven't already done that or know how to do that, you'll need to go to zoomgrants.com. At the top, you'll see the login button that you can click, enter your email address and password. And if you need to, passwords can be recovered via the Forgot Password link, or you can always contact questions@zoomgrants.com if you need any assistance with accessing your account. Once you're into your account, have logged in, you'll look over to the right-hand side of your main home page to find the approved applications folder within your main home page for your organization. Once you've located the title of that application, click the title and you can open up that application. You also will see navigation buttons there on your home page, which I'll show you, but that will allow you to quickly create an invoice or financial form or a Exhibit B report. If you need to add collaborators, this is always an important step and often missed step by applicants. Once they've turned subrecipients, you often need to invite others to work on your application. In addition to just the application, you might have somebody who also needs to work on just the reports or just help with the financial aspect of working within Zoom Grants. You can assign different collaborator roles to different entities within your organization by adding an email address, first name, last name, and title on your summary tab of your application, and then check the box next to their name to give access to those respective roles that you need to give them access to. If you need to update an existing collaborator role, you can just simply check those additional boxes next to their name where they had previously maybe only been given access to the application. So first we're going to cover invoices within Zoom Grants. In order to access an invoice, as I mentioned, you can either create an invoice directly from your My Account homepage by clicking the Add Invoice button, or you can navigate to the Financial tab within your application. And at the bottom of your list of maybe previously created invoices, which you can go back and access at any time and see in a quick bird's eye view, you also have the ability to create new invoices at any time. Just a heads up that if you create a new invoice, make sure that you go back and edit the previously created invoice. Don't create a new invoice and split information between the two. And keep in mind, once again, that this may be called something else, and we'll go through that when we go to the live example within the account. As you're completing that invoice, you'll need to create an invoice number, requested amount. You have a place to complete the invoice contact name, phone, and email. And as you're filling those different fields and uploading the requested documents, you can then see at the top of that invoice, you have a Submit Invoice button. Once it's been successfully submitted, that Submit button will instead be replaced with a timestamp in Pacific time of when it was submitted. Next, we're going to cover submitting reports. So to access the Report tab, once again, you can click that shortcut button directly from your My Account homepage to add a report, and it will navigate you straight there to complete the next report that's on your list. Or you can click into the program itself in order to access Report 1, 2, or 3, depending upon which one is coming up due. As you're creating those different reports, make sure that you are completing every single field and that you're keeping in mind to stay within the character limits for that specific question if they are there. Remember that a question will not save your answer if you've exceeded a character limit, or if you're copying and pasting data, make sure you copy and paste as plain text so that it strips away any shady characters or weird formatting that may be existing within that copied text that you're trying to input into the system. When you go to submit that report, you'll make sure, or the system will also make sure, that all of those questions have been answered. If there are any questions that are missing response, we will indicate in red lettering some fields are missing answers, and we'll tell you which report questions need a response still. Or if there's any required documents that have been that you forgot to upload when submitting that report, we'll also give you a flag there. If you are missing any fields, forgot to answer a question before you click the submit button early, just note that you'll want to do a page refresh in order to make sure that the system has saved your most recent version and a completed version before you click that final submit button. And the refresh page is just one of those things that's good to use often and again to check your work as you're working within the system. So next I'm going to show you an example of what those different reporting pages will look like within the system. I'm in a just plain applicant preview where you can always go back and access the library at any time to look at HUD definitions and resources that have been provided to you. You can also, within this, see the setup or general setup of what it will look like when you go into your own request for payment tab, as we call it financials. You get it's potato, they do the same. Request for payment tab here is where you would be able to create that new invoice. Under Exhibit B, Report, this tab is where you would go in and be able to access any of the individual tabs that you would need in order to submit those quarterly reports when they're due. Each one of these questions will be set up a certain way. Table style questions, as you see here, you'll input numeric values. Zoom Grants will actually provide totals at the bottom of those table style questions, and under the Report Totals tab over here next to it, we'll actually compile that information over time and allow you to see and track year-to-date totals of, for example, the number of persons or households served by that program or activity. If you have any questions about how to use Zoom Grants, you can always use the Help button in the upper right-hand corner to watch some information or videos about how to submit information through Zoom Grants. Go to Zoom Grants University, contact the administrator, or to contact us for any technical issues you may be experiencing, or you can shoot an email to questions@zoomgrants.com or give us a phone call at 866-323-5404 extension 2. Do we have any questions? Hearing none, I'll turn it back over to you, Rosie.
All right. Thank you, Lauren. We
Thank you.
appreciate your time and your guidance. And yeah, the help desk is always very, it's always great. And we find that you are very responsive. So thank you so much. Okay, moving on to the rest of the training. Here we go. We are going, I wonder why it's not popping up there. Okay, well, we are going to be going over all of the documents that make up your contract agreement and also the process that you will go through to ensure compliance with HUD's requirements. So, first thing for capital projects. Now, again, this is just for those that are receiving capital funding, not public service funding. We will be conducting a pre construction meeting individually with each of you to ensure that you are complying with HUD's requirements depending on the amount of money you're receiving. So, and also depending on the type of work. So, for example, minor home repair programs like ComUnify and CAPSO, they don't have to abide by federal labor standards such as prevailing wage. However, there are other things that they do have to show as far as documentation goes. But for those that are not minor home repair, you will have to abide by prevailing wage. And also, if you are receiving over $200,000 in funding, you will also have to abide by Section 3 requirements. Um, Also, you will be required to obtain a DIR number, and then we will be conducting interviews with employees at the construction site to ensure compliance of the federal labor standards. So again, we will all over all of that individually with each subrecipient. So I don't want you to walk away thinking that this is all you're going to get from us, but we do want you to know that this will be coming as soon as work. As soon as the agency is ready to go with their contractor. So we will go over all of this with your contractor as well. So everybody is on the same page. Please keep in mind, do not start the project until a pre-construction meeting has occurred and an executed contract has been filed. Okay, so overview of your contract exhibits. There are 3 exhibits, Exhibit A, B, and C. Exhibit A is your statement of work. You all have filled one out, and that will be included in your contract. And that is basically your statement of work, what you're going to do. It's here's what we expect to do. Here's how many people we expect to serve with the amount of money we're receiving. And to tie it all back up, your Exhibit C is what you did do. So it's basically all of the same questions that you're going to be answering, but in the past tense. This is what we did do. This is what we accomplished. The goal is always that your estimates are somewhat close to your actuals. If there is a huge difference between what you estimated and what you actually did, then we need to explain that. But that's basically, I'm trying to simplify it as much as I can, but basically your exhibit A is what you're going to do. Your exhibit C is what you did do. Now your exhibit B, the quarterly report, that is something you will submit in Zoom grants, and that is the number of people you served during that time, during that quarter. And in Zoom grants, it's great because it gets accumulated. So all you have to do is enter the numbers and everything else gets added up for you. So you don't have to do anything other than just enter the amount of people you served or households you served during that time, and it all gets collected for you. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So moving on to the statement of work. So sorry. This is what the Exhibit A looks like. And here's your statement of work. And again, you all have already done this, but I just wanted to make sure that we brought it up, and just in case. There's a few of you that are maybe new. I know that sometimes we have people attend this training that aren't super familiar or haven't been involved. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of what it looked like. And we tried to make it as easy as possible. Now, believe it or not, everything that we ask in this 2-page Exhibit A is stuff that we include in our reports to HUD. So all of this information is what we report to HUD. And so therefore, it is important that it remains consistent. So in your request for payment, for example, when you do submit a request for payment, this information here, the line item with your where it says a CDBG budget breakdown, whatever you have in this budget is what you will have in your request for payment. So, because those are the line items that we told HUD you are going to be focused on. And so we take that from your original application, and then we submit that to HUD, and we make sure that your Exhibit A is consistent with what was submitted to HUD. If there are any changes along the way, we do need to know, or if you have any line items you need to change, we do need to know that, because like I said, your Exhibit A is what you're telling us is going to happen, and any change throughout the fiscal year needs to be addressed to us, because we will more than likely have to uh, share that information with HUD. So just keep an open line of communication with us, and we will do the best we can to work with you throughout the process. Your Exhibit B, again, that one's quarterly, and you will submit that through Zoom Grants. And here is an overview of the deadlines. So your first quarter, which runs from July through September, the due date is always 30 days after, so October 30th. Your quarter two runs from October to December. Your due date will be January 30th. Your quarter three, it's January through March. Your quarter date report due date is April 30th. However, your quarter four, because the fourth quarter, we have to wrap it up before the 30th of June because of our requirements that we have with our finance department, because they also have to wrap up the fiscal year. We require that report to be submitted no later than June 12th of 2024. Now, keep in mind, we're telling you this now, so plan accordingly, and just be aware of that deadline. I see a question. Kemba. Hi, Kemba.
Hi, good morning. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's just my Teams, but it's loading on my end. You'll send the hard copies of this, right?
Oh, yes. I should have shared that with you at the beginning. We will be sharing the PowerPoint presentation with all of you, and then we will be uploading it to our webpage as well as the recording of this training.
Okay, no worries.
Um,
I mean, mine is just, I can't see, it's not scrolling for your screens. It just seems
oh,
to
I
be
am
loading.
so
I don't
sorry.
know
Is
if it's
that,
just me. It could just be me.
let me know. Is anybody else having that problem?
I'm able to, on the bottom of my screen, I've been following along by hitting next, next, next on the slides. You have control of your own PowerPoint, I think. Well, at least I do.
Oh,
Oh, that is so odd. Let
oh,
me
okay.
see. Thank you for
We're on
bringing it to
page
my
10 of
attention.
34.
Yes. Let me stop sharing and let me start over again, and maybe that will help. Let me see
Oh,
here. Yeah, let me stop sharing for a second, because I don't want you all to have to struggle. Let's see here. Is that better? Is that better for everyone?
I can see it. This is
Wonderful.
Lauren at Zoom Green. So
Okay. Exhibit B. Yeah, great. Okay. All right. Thanks, Kemba, for letting me know, and thank you all for your patience. Okay, so your quarterly report for the Exhibit B for capital is slightly different, and that is because we understand that with capital, you you're you're really not going to have deliverables until the very end. Oh, did everybody's screen go blank all of a sudden?
We lost your
Yes.
PowerPoint, yes.
yes, it
Uh,
did.
I
And when
don't
you did it
know.
again, I also had to again go to slide 12 myself.
I'm not really sure what is going on.
I just saw it come back on, and now it's on slide 10 of 34.
Yes, I wasn't even touching the anything when it just went blank. Okay. Can everyone see it now?
I can.
Great. Okay. All right, we will just continue. So for capital projects, you will submit the Exhibit B at the end when you have completed your project. However, we are going to request that you submit um, a, a a quarterly report giving us updates. So, for example, if even if you didn't have anything happen that quarter, we still need to know, and we need to know why. And that's also because HUD every few months will send us alerts letting us know, hey, this project is we haven't seen activity in 90 days, or we haven't seen activity in 180 days. What's going on? And so we also have to report to HUD through the system there are reporting systems. So that is why we do request that you submit a quarterly report to us, because we do end up sharing that with HUD. So again, we will go all over all of that with you in our pre-construction meeting. And this is what that quarterly progress report looks like. And all of these forms will be on our website. Our website right now has fiscal year 22-23 forms. We will be updating those forms to the 23-24 forms in the next couple of weeks. And we will send out a link to it. It'll be the same link it'll be the same web page. It's just going to be updated forms. Okay, so just a quick overview, and again, you all are probably aware of it, but for the sake of just making sure that we address it for those that are new, CDBG has three national objectives that we must meet one of three national objectives that we must meet in order to comply with HUD's requirements. And that is to either benefit low and moderate income people, as defined by HUD, to aid in the prevention of slums and blight, or meet a particular urgent need in the community. So most of you will probably fall under the first national objective, which is the benefit of low to moderate income people or areas as defined by HUD. We also have some groups that are considered presumed benefit, and that means that regardless of their income status, they automatically qualify as eligible groups under HUD's definition. And you can see those on your screen. Abused children, victims of intimate partner violence, elderly, which is considered 62 and over, severely disabled adults, people experiencing homelessness, illiterate adults, persons living with AIDS, and migrant farm workers. So going to your exhibit A, you will see that one of the requirements is that you assist the majority of the people assisted or households assisted should be considered low to moderate income. You can see the income guidelines here on your screen. These were updated as of June 15th, so these are very recent numbers. You can see here on your screen that a family of four could make $118,000 a year in Santa Barbara County and still be considered low to moderate income. So the income guidelines are very important to look at because they do change, and I think there is this misconception that if you make 118,000 a year, you're not considered low to moderate income yet. Depending on your household size, you very well could. So this means that the majority of the people in Santa Maria are based on census information we have. The majority of the people in Santa Maria do qualify for CDBG funded programs. Your quarterly report, Exhibit B, will also ask you to share information about those assisted with CDBG funds, and that includes the race and ethnicity. And here's the breakdown, as you can see on your screen. And that is ultimately what that individual identifies as. So you will more than likely provide each person being assisted with CDBG funds to fill out a client intake form, and that client intake form should have all of this information on there, and then they will self-certify what they feel is their race and ethnicity, and then that will get reported back to us. And again, all of this is required by HUD, and we do have to enter it into our reporting system. So again, we aren't asking for anything that we don't need per HUD's requirements. Now, you are more than welcome to use your own client intake form. However, we did create a client intake form that has been used by several nonprofits to obtain the information that they need to send to us. So this is an example of the client intake form that we have, and we do have it in Spanish as well. And it has all of the information you will need in order to report, in order to fill out your Exhibit B and report that back to us. I do see a question in the chat. If a person fails to disclose, do we mark them as other? That is a great question. I would say yes, because leaving it to you to have to figure out, it may be putting you in an awkward situation, and it may not be accurate based on what they feel they are. So yeah, mixed other is probably the best option if someone does not want to disclose. Thank you for that question, Alejandra. So again, this is what your Exhibit C looks like. It looks very similar to the Exhibit A, and that's because we purposely did it that way to make it very easy for you to see kind of the difference between what you did and what you said you were going to do and what you did. So we wanted it to be very similar so that it would be easier for you to fill out and submit to us. This is the second page. Again, very, very similar to the Exhibit A. It's just basically asking you to let us know if anything changed between the beginning and the end. So to recap the reporting requirements, the Exhibit A is the number reported to HUD, and it should be consistent with what's in our annual action plan. And you can find our annual action plan on our website as well, or we can send you a quick link to find it a little more easily. You will be required to submit 4 Exhibit B quarterly reports for public services, and for capital, you will be required to submit a quarterly progress report. And your Exhibit C, you will submit at the end, and that is recapping what you did do for the year. And keep in mind that you can close out your project at any time. So you can start the project after July 1st and after you have an executed contract, which hopefully will be around the same time. And if you expend all your funds early, if you expend all your funds, let's say by October, you can close out your grant by October. You don't have to go through the 4 quarters. You don't have to bill us for a quarter, 25% of your grant every quarter. You don't have to wait, 6 months to bill us for half your. If you've expended your funding, and if you have the numbers to back it up, and if you did everything you needed to do and you finished all that by October, that's okay. We encourage that. We encourage you to do what you can as soon as you can, and then you don't have to deal with us the rest of the fiscal year. Any questions so far? All right, I'm going to pass it over to Adriana, and Adriana is going to go over the payment process with you. And if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand.
Thank you, Rosie. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Or Rosie, can you stop sharing your screen? Oh, thank you. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, so for the payment process, this is what I will be reviewing. So a lot of you agencies are already familiar with our RFP process. So starting off, we recently updated our RFP and our summary of expenditures forms. So any agencies that may have current RFP or summary of expenditure forms saved anywhere in their files or on their computer, I recommend that you guys go ahead and delete those files right now, because for this upcoming program year, we're going to start requiring that our new forms are going to be used. And these forms are available on our city's website. We'll go over the forms shortly. And another thing is that we are no longer requiring wet signatures for the RFP form. Beforehand, every time the RFP form was signed and uploaded into Zoom Grants, we required the agencies to go ahead and mail in a wet signature, but we're no longer requiring that. You just have to sign it and upload it into Zoom Grants. So that's going to be a good change, so that way we don't have to mess around with snail mail. Again, a summary of expenditures is going to have to be required to be submitted along with the RFP form, and we'll go over that shortly. Another thing is that only a maximum of 4 RFPs may be submitted per fiscal year. This is just to ensure that the RFPs, for each RFP, it's a minimum of $1,000. And again, we'll go over that. The time periods of incurred expenditures cannot overlap with previous RFPs. So for example, if one RFP you're billing from January to March, for the next RFP, you cannot bill, let's say, from February to June, because you already billed for February and March in your previous RFP. So just make sure that times don't overlap in your RFPs. Quarterly submissions are preferred but not required. And please do not wait until the end of the fiscal year to submit a request for payment. And this is just to ensure that once your agency submits the RFP, that gives us, the city staff, enough time to process and review your request for payment. And if there's any missing material, if there's any questions that we may have, this gives us enough time to catch this, and so that way you guys can resolve it. Otherwise, if you wait until the very last deadline to submit your RFP, it may not give us enough time to catch any mistakes. So that way make sure that you guys get the full grant allocation amount. And then lastly, once we do process an RFP, it usually takes our finance department about 2 weeks to cut a check. They work on a bi-weekly schedule, and then once the check is cut, we will go ahead and mail that check over to your office. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is what the new RFP looks like. It's not that different from our previous RFP. So one thing that we did do differently is we added drop-down menus in the RFP, and I'll show that to you guys shortly. But pretty much up here at the top where my mouse is, there'll be a drop-down menu, so that way you guys can select which RFP number it is you guys are going to be submitted. So if you're my mouse. Okay, so if you're submitting RFP number 1, you'll go to the drop-down, select number 1. If it's number 2, select the drop-down, you'll hit number 2. The text fields, you guys will go ahead and enter in your agency information. Right here, CDBG expenditures. This is what I was talking about when time periods cannot overlap. So just make sure that for each RFP, the time periods do not overlap with previous RFPs within the same fiscal year. CDBG line description. This is going to correspond with your Exhibit A's. So whatever you guys submitted in your Exhibit A, there'll be a drop-down menu right here, and you guys will go ahead and select the line item that you guys had stated in your Exhibit A. Right here in the breakdown of CDBG line items, you guys will go ahead, sorry, my mouse keeps on cutting off. You guys will go ahead and designate what, again, this will reflect of what was in your Exhibit A. So for example, if you guys selected salaries and your grant was for $15,000 and you guys designated that all of the $15,000 will be used for salaries, then you will go ahead and put the salaries in this box right here. RFPs billed to date. So any RFPs that have already been billed and processed, you would go ahead and put the RFP allocation amount in this column. And then lastly, in the last column, you will put your current request for payment. Do we have any questions so far? No? Okay, we will go to the next slide. So summary of expenditures, this will be required for each RFP. Depending on what you guys selected, there will be 2 summary of expenditures. Let me go ahead and switch over. So this is what the RFP form looks like. And these are the drop-down menus that I was referring to. So if you look, there's drop-down menus. And again, the CDBG line description items are already filled in for you guys. So you guys just select which one you guys have stated in your Exhibit A. And then the summary of expenditures are right here at the bottom. Can you guys see that? I take that as a yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So depending on what you guys stated for your line items, you guys will either be using the vendor summary of expenditures or the salary. So if you guys selected that you will be using your grant money for employee salaries, then you would go ahead and use the salary summary of expenditures. And this is required for salaries. Otherwise, for all other expenditures, you would go ahead and use the vendor summary of expenditures. So this is pretty much just a breakdown of what you guys are requesting reimbursement for. So if you look up at the top, this is going to be broken down by the line items. So if you selected that you would be using your grant money for your office rent, then up here you would put, there's actually a drop-down menu here too. So you would go ahead and select occupancy/utilities, and then say as if you also selected that you would be using the CDBG allocation for direct assistance to individuals, such as providing utility assistance, then you would go ahead and select that. And then you would just fill in the information. For example, for your rent, the vendor name, that would be your landlord or the property management, the date of transaction or the period billing cycle. For example, that would be January rent, the total amount of the rent for that month. So for example, if your rent for January was $2,500, and then how much you will be requesting reimbursement for. Some agencies, they may request a full 2,500, or they can request less. So that way it doesn't exceed their grant amount. So if your rent was 2,500, but you can go ahead and request, I don't know, 1,500. So this is just a breakdown of what you are providing requests for. For salaries, so it's really important for salaries that you are only requesting billable time for employee time that was actually worked. And what I mean by that is we do not reimburse time for benefits. So sometimes in previous RFPs, we have seen agencies request reimbursement for, PTO hours, holiday hours, or, retirement and insurance. We cannot reimburse that. We only reimburse time that for and reimburse employee time that was actually worked. So that's really important. Let me go ahead and go back to our slide. So this right here reviews what I was just talking about. Employee work hour, if you are requesting reimbursement for salaries, employee work hours billed to CDBG must be documented with employee timesheets. You can only include actual time worked. Do not include employee fringe benefits, except for capital projects. If you have any questions, let us know. The description of the activity/service provided is required for the time billed to CDBG funding. The next slide will show an example of that. And do not charge percentage or prorated rates. Subrecipients can use the template of time and attendance record posted on the city's website. And that time and attendance record looks like this. So this is a previous template that we have already used for other program years. This has not changed. So pretty much you would include the employee's name, the name of the agency, and then you would fill in the dates. And right here is where you would put a description of the activity that the employee performed to make sure that, we have to verify that the activity performed is an eligible CDBG item that can be reimbursed. And then right here in these columns, you would put in for each day how many hours of CDBG time that they worked. Okay, and then this is just a template that we have. We are not requiring agencies to use this template. If they have their own template that they want to use, that's okay. Just make sure it follows this same type of format, and it still contains the same information as this template. And if you want to check with us to make sure it's okay, feel free to send us that template so that way we can review it as well. Okay, so required supporting documentation. This is just an overview of what will be required for each CDBG line item. So again, salaries, we will need employee time cards that are signed by the supervisor, documenting employee time spent on CDBG related activities. So this would be this form right here, or a template that the agency already has. Again, time billed to CDBG time must have a description of the activity. And then we will also need payroll spreadsheets. And this is to ensure that the information that you are providing on the summer expenditures, we need to verify that with the payroll spreadsheets. Occupancy, which is also the agency's rent. We need a copy of your current lease agreement. That must be up to date. And then again, we also need a proof of payment that you had already paid that month's rent. So that can be a copy of the check. If it's an online payment, we just need a copy of the online payment. General purchases and direct assistance to individuals. We will need itemized invoices that has a breakdown of all of the items that were purchased. Ineligible items that will not be reimbursed include furniture and equipment such as electronics. Again, we need a proof of payment, copy of a check, or a copy of credit card receipt. And then also, if you will be providing direct assistance to individuals, such as providing assistance to pay their utilities, we will also need a copy of the client intake form for that specific individual. And then for construction contracts, if this applies to your agency, we will also need certified payroll documents and also Section 3 documents as well. Okay, does anybody have any questions so far? No? Okay. Okay, so payment process. Funds can only be used on a reimbursement basis. Payments are not made until after the approved cost has incurred and paid by the subrecipient. So again, this is why we are requiring that proof of payment must be submitted along with the RFP. Errors on invoices or missing documents will delay the reimbursement process, and incorrect or incomplete invoices will be returned for corrections. And if there are missing information or errors in the RFP, we will communicate with the agency, usually by email, letting you guys know what we will need. If quarterly reports, this is what Rosie was talking about earlier, such as your Exhibit Bs, are not submitted by quarterly deadlines, then your guys' payments, such as your checks, will be held until these reports are submitted to us. And then lastly, the final request for payment will also be held until we receive the agency's Exhibit C, which closes out which is just a summary of what you guys accomplished for the whole fiscal year. And just a reminder, the deadline to submit the final RFP is June 12th, 2024. Okay, invoicing, views and notes. So again, do plan ahead just to make sure that invoices are submitted on time. You are allowed to close out the grant earlier than before June 12th. If you find that at any time you meet your annual goal and you expend all your funds, you're more than welcome to submit all of the required documents to close out the program year ahead of time. And then also just make sure to provide clear backup documentation. A HUD representative once told our office the file must speak for itself. And then don't wait until last minute to submit an invoice. This could potentially put your agency's funding at risk. And then also do not start billing or do not bill for ineligible expenses. Expenses must be incurred during the contract period, which starts July 1st and ends June 12th. Anything billed prior to June 1st will not be reimbursed. Okay, any questions? Okay. All right, audit requirements. Okay. Under federal regulations of the Single Audit Act of 1996, an agency must do a single audit if it receives more than 75 or 750,000 in federal funds per fiscal year. So this is not going to apply to a lot of public service agencies, mainly capital projects. And city staff will do monitorings. We will review records through an annual monitoring. And this pretty much all subrecipients will be required to submit a desk monitoring review. Based on a risk analysis, a few agencies will be selected for an on-site monitoring review by city staff, and then failure to submit reports and invoices in a timely manner will be addressed in the annual monitoring review letter and will be reported back to the Block Grants Advisory Committee. And then program record keeping. Accurate record keeping is crucial to a successful program and CDBG funded activities. Subrecipients must maintain up-to-date files for original source documentation for all CDBG related expenses. And then in addition, these files must be securely stored. So especially if you're dealing with client information, just making sure that this information is safe and locked up and not available to anybody that shouldn't have access to these files. Insufficient documentation is likely to lead to monitoring findings. Findings will be more difficult to resolve if records are missing, inadequate, or inaccurate. Do not place your agency's CDBG funding status in jeopardy by failing to maintain sufficient and accurate records. CDB records shall be retained by the agency for a period of 5 years from the end of the grant closeout. And then timeliness. So each year, HUD, which oversees CDBG funds, they do a timely test, usually halfway through their program year. And what this does is HUD just wants to ensure that agencies are expending their funds in a timely manner. So this is why we prefer that agencies submit RFP requests every quarter, so that way it ensures that you guys are using your money. Otherwise, if you guys aren't using your money throughout the year, and once HUD does their timeliness tests, they will question it because to them it just shows that the money's sitting there, and they don't want the money to just sit there. They want to see that the money is being used. And unspent subrecipient funds can place the whole entire CDB program into non-compliance. And we will also give agencies a heads up before HUD does their timeliness test, especially to the agencies that have not spent at least 50% of its contract amount by the end of the second quarter. So subrecipient resources. Here is a link at the bottom to our city's website. And on the website is where you will find a lot of helpful resources, such as the request for payment form and the summary of expenditures, which is right here. There's also capital project resources, such as your statement of work, your quarterly report form, and all of these forms are right here on our website. And here is our contact information for the programs division for Rosie, Alicia, and myself. And then also, if you guys do need assistance with group Zoom grants, here is some contact information for Zoom grants as well. And then lastly, thank you for attending for today's session. And we will go ahead and open up the meeting to anybody that may have some questions for Rosie or myself. So let me get out of here. Rosie, is there anything that you want to add?
No, thank you, Adriana. Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions? Is the income limit form on your site? Yes, it's on our website, or where everything else is, all of our forms. And I did add that link to the chat, so you should be able to access it. And let me just double check and make sure it was updated. But yes, it says under general subrecipient resources, it says income limits. And yes, actually, it has not been updated yet. So we have to send our updated web page requests to somebody else. And so we're at the mercy of that somebody else to do it. But we will double check today. But either way, it will get updated in the coming days. All right. Any other questions? Okay, well, if anything comes up along the way, please feel free to reach out to us. If you have any questions about Zoom grants, please feel free to reach out to Zoom grants directly as far as anything technical. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for everything you do for the community. We really appreciate the partnership. We value it. And we look forward to our continued relationship. Lauren, anything else? Adriana?
I was just going to say thanks for having me. Let us know if you need any help. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.